What is going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Second Guessing with Stressin, the Houston Texans content creator series. Today, we're joined by the H-Town Rundown. First off, we got Michael G. I've never pronounced your last name. Is it pronounced Gartman?
Yeah.
Michael Gartman. He's one of the hosts or co-hosts of the H-Town Rundown. Michael, how you doing, man?
Good. How about you?
All doing great, man. I mean, we were talking, in the lobby before. I mean, you sometimes have these shows and think, oh, what am I going to talk about? But I mean, it's just never ending content with Texans, man. I mean, when you're as passionate as you and I are, I mean, you can talk about them all day. I mean, do you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, you can find yourself in a 30-minute debate about who's going to be the swing tackle. So, we're always swarming around here.
I love that y'all are, we're all the same, that we can have these in-depth conversations about, reserve pieces. So it's good to know we're not the only ones that are like that as well. But yeah, so today we have Jules and Swan will also be joining. We're kind of waiting on them. They'll kind of pop in the lobby and we'll send them up to the front whenever they get here. But yeah, I mean, so if you guys aren't familiar with the H-Town Rundown, they have a podcast which is on YouTube, X, and IG. They even got merch. They got shirts. They're well known for their fall series during the season where they do the all 22 breakdown, which they do a great job of. And if you don't mind, too, this obviously AD is a co-host of that as well, and he's been on this content creator series already. So because of that, he's not on today, but obviously he's part of the show. Great guy. I consider him a friend of mine. I'm on shows with him myself. Could you also just tell me about the show, Michael, and who else is on there and who may not be on today?
Yeah, we got Jules and Swan. We're also co-hosts and longtime, you know, folks who have been in the Twitter streets of Texans Twitter for a while are very familiar with their names. Going back the last few years at least, because it all started with Twitter. With the Twitter Spaces with AD and Chris Royal, RIP.
RIP.
Yeah, those late nights, middle of October, talking about draft prospects. I'll never forget that. So that's kind of where it originated. Then it became the BOP, and then kind of rebranded shortly thereafter into the H-Town Rundown. So definitely, as you pointed out, what sets us apart from other awesome Texans content creators is during the season we have, as you've been a part of as well, the weekly film reviews where we break down the all 22, what went wrong, what went right, and it's always fun. So
yeah, and I'm definitely a big fan. I mean, you guys do a great job, and obviously with this series, like my goal is to kind of shed light on the people, like fellow content creators that do great work. It's an awesome community. So as you can see in the bottom, and you can shout out as well, but all the handles, obviously they're on X, YouTube, Instagram, as well as you have your own personal stuff, Mike. If you don't mind shouting that out real quick.
yeah, you can. I mean, I guess the best place for it is Twitter, where I'll put out the links there. Everything posted from the H-Town Rundown and anything else we're doing. So.
Okay. Yeah. And always, as always, I haven't mentioned this as often as I should, but if you're listening to this on Spotify, please like and leave a review, as well as for these guys, anywhere they have stuff, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. So we got Swan in the background. Swan, I'll tap you in here in about 10 to 15 minutes. If you're cool with that, and I'll make sure you're good. And I can see, if you give me a thumbs up, but without much more to do on that, Michael, if you don't mind, just tell me a little bit about yourself. I know you've kind of covered the podcast, just as much as you want it to be, but as it pertains to you and your fandom and how you're doing what you do now.
Yeah. So as far as the sports media aspect of it, I got started like a lot of people around my age, back at Bleach Report off a Facebook ad back when Bleach Report wasn't massive. Started there when I was 15 years old. Yeah, going way back in time there.
True fan.
Then I got an opportunity, got promoted to managing editor at NFL Touchdown, which was run by Andy Benoit. I think he's still with CBS Sports and Sports Illustrated right now. But there was a time when during the Rams Super Bowl run, Sean McVay hired him to be his top assistant. So, you're always somehow connected.
That's a pipe dream for all of us right there, right?
Yeah, I know. And I guess my favorite part of this, I mean, I went on to start my own website. Um, my favorite part of it has always been interviewing draft prospects, being able to tell their story because everybody's got a story. And Aaron Donald would have been my biggest draft interview. I like to say that I taught him everything he knows, but he he's he's the first pick anyone would have if we were to actually go up against the gorilla. So
He
he
is the
feels,
gorilla, man. He's a
yeah.
beast.
Um, so yeah, after that, I kind of took a little bit of a hiatus. Joined around COVID time of Football Alliance, which is a great site. They do a lot of good work over there. Ended up going to the Senior Bowl in about 2 years ago. So got in the press box, interviewing draft prospects. It was just like, man, this is awesome. I gotta get back into this. So I ended up working over at Clutch Points for a little while. So right now I'm a free agent, but looking to get back into the writing aspect. But obviously, every week we're doing the H-Town rundown too. So,
Man, and that's why I enjoy doing this, and I kind of like
mhm.
to not have too much of a convo prior to the show because I
Right.
love it's not only good for everyone else, but for me to learn about people I've interacted with. Like I knew none of that about you. That's awesome. That's very impressive. I didn't know you worked for those various companies and had the opportunity to interview draft prospects like Aaron Donald, go to the
Oh, yeah.
Senior Bowl. That's awesome to hear. And I will say, I don't know if I've told you this before or not, but to anybody, like with my site, like my idea of it is like it's for fans. So like I have the ability where articles can be written. If you ever want to write on my site, I wouldn't be able to pay you, but if you just have the itch to get something out there, just an opinion, long form,
Mhm.
free to do so. I can set you up with access to log in and do so. So that's cool to hear. But obviously, you talked about the drafts, and I know prior you said that's probably your favorite part of
Oh,
being
yeah.
an NFL fan. With that being said, what are your thoughts on the draft with the Texans?
I am pretty I have a pretty favorable opinion of it. I would give it a B plus. Um, you know, I know there was a lot of disappointment that the Texans traded out, and I'd actually said this like 2 months ago. When we're talking about okay, what sort of trade options? Because it's Nick Casario and D'Amico, and they got a trade history. And I'm like, all right, well, the only way that we would trade out of the first round that would make sense and where we get a good package is if another team like I mentioned the Giants, the Browns, obviously the Titans ended up taking Cam Ward, and maybe the Saints being the farthest back at pick 40. If one of those teams thinks that the Rams really might take a quarterback to be the heir apparent to Matt Stafford, and honestly, looking at it then and looking at it now, there's no other reason for the Giants to move up to 25 as they did unless they really thought the Rams were going to do it. Because otherwise, you want that fifth year option, you just trade up to 30, 31, 32. And that's what happened. And then the Rams immediately bolted, traded
Hmm.
20 spots down, got a first rounder next year. So I like the I don't know how much they were intrigued with Josh Simmons or how concerned they were with the injuries. Obviously, a lot of folks, including myself, mocked Josh Simmons to the Texans at one point. But clearly, they were okay with waiting a little bit on the offensive line and doubling down, getting Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel. I love the continuity that's going to be there right there. The fact it's kind of mind boggling. You look at as we were doing the live coverage, live stream of Daniel Jeremiah's comp for Jaden Higgins being Nico Collins, and then Jalen Noel's comp being Christian Kirk, and then how similar Jalen Smith is to Jalen Petrie. It's like Nick Casario, D'Amico clearly like, all right, we're not going to let these injuries stop us. We're going to have a guy who's just like them, ready to step in if something happens. And you're not going to have a team out there that can cover simultaneously Nico Collins, Jaden Higgins, Jalen Noel, and Christian Kirk. This is not a secondary out there. The only one you could possibly come up with one is us. So those are going to be some fun battles in training camp and in practice every week. And I like the Ursary pick. That's clearly a hey, we don't really believe in Cam Robinson for the long haul. Let's get a guy in here to be the left tackle of the future. And there's been a lot of talk. Hey, push him in a guard. I'm like, we did this with Titus Howard. It's worked out fine, but do we want to keep doing that? Like, and there are some guys like Gray Zabel who are like very versatile, and you can clearly tell. Okay, this guy can play tackle. He can play guard. Let's keep Ursary where he belongs. His profile fits very well as a left tackle. So I like that plan. If Cam Robinson gets hurt, or if his play really starts to decline, I think Ursary can step in and make a big impact. And obviously, he has long documented history of success in a zone system, which we anticipate the Texans continuing to have. There'll probably be some tweaks. We don't really know for sure because it's Nick Caley coming in and new O-line coach as well. So, but yeah, I like the draft overall. My only drawback was, man, we didn't get a surefire, bona fide, like good center / guard. Because obviously I like Jared Wilson quite a bit, but that's not everybody's cup of tea. But man, I like we double dipped at receiver early on, got some playmakers who are going to be here for the long haul. So I think the Texans offense got a bright future as long as the O-line can keep things improve off of last year. Because let's be honest, 54 sacks, 8 sacks against the Chiefs, we can't let that happen again. So
yeah, no, that was a disaster, and I think that's where most fans are scarred. And I had the same draft grade as you, B plus, and I would imagine we have some of the same. While that's like a pretty good grade, there's still some reservations. We learned a lot about this. Like they basically indicated to us fans that they aren't nearly as concerned about the current interior O line roster as we are, by basically of ignoring that position altogether and not and getting a left tackle who maybe could play inside, but like you said, he's more than likely a developmental left tackle and someone that you're not going to rely on to step in this year, but could if need be. So with that being said, like me prior to the draft, I was looking at it as I'm not always the biggest fan of BPA. I think it's good to have like BPA within your needs, like a mixture of the two, especially in the early rounds, which I still think it's easier in hindsight. You look back now, they still kind of did, but my big thing was I was like focusing in on they're in win now mode. Last 2 years of CJ Stroud's contract, we only have like 2 or 3 like glaring holes, as far as needs, which would be interior O line which is what we thought. I would say a nose tackle. We still don't have a nose tackle, a true one tech run stopping nose tackle, and then obviously wide receiver 2/3. And so I thought they would like address those in that order, but it appears Caserio still stuck to his guns and his approach as far as playing the board, not overspending. We heard talks about trade ups. And so I guess with that being said, like as far as his approach, would you have liked to see him be more aggressive, or do you still like him to be prudent and be long-term and have, some of these question marks potentially still looming?
Well, aggressive in the like trading all over the place to try to get your guy. I don't think he could have been any more aggressive. In terms of aggressive, like, hey, we got to fix this interior offensive line issue. I guess, but I mean, we'll never know, right? Whether they would have taken Gray Zabel had he been there, or had he taken Tyler Booker, which I think he would have, since there were reports, speculation that he was trying to trade up in that range. I mean, there were a few prospects I wanted. Like I personally had like you develop a draft crush on at least a handful of guys every draft cycle, and the Patriots happen to get 2 of them, Jared Wilson and Kyle Williams. But
Yep, Kyle Williams. I
yeah,
was a big fan.
yeah. But I really did like our draft. I think Noel and Higgins are going to be able to make an impact right away. And It's interesting. We got 3 Cyclone receivers now. Uh, so going to be a lot of interesting training camp battles. I think we're going to bring back Foley Fatukasi. Obviously, I don't have any reporting on that, but
I would
I think
suspect that too.
yeah, I think there's an injury question there, just of how ready is he going to be. The fact that we haven't heard anything about his free agent market suggests that the most likely landing spot is to return to Houston, where he was such a good run defender. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you felt when he wasn't in there. Oh
Facts.
no! Oh no! Oh,
Pause.
there he goes. And
Hey, you did it to yourself. I was gonna let it slide. I didn't even.
and and I mean, he brings some pass rush chops too. Like he's not obviously Aaron Donald by any means, but he can make some plays too as a pass rusher. So I think that's the biggest name to watch for the Texans as far as any sort of free agent moves. Um, and I mean that defense overall though is I don't think it could be any better. Like we got 3
From
linebackers.
last year, or just
Um,
talking about like what it is now.
what is now? Yeah.
Yeah.
Aside from bringing in Foley, because that D line. I mean, yeah, would I have liked a few D tackles like higher up? Now, maybe the Rutgers guy who was a wrestler, maybe he's a
Yeah.
diamond in the rough. We see that every draft class. There'll be a couple of 5th rounders, a couple of 6th rounders, and a couple of 7th rounders. You're like, they can play. They can
Yep.
really play. So maybe we got one of them. So we don't have any superstars there at D tackle, but we got 2 on the edge. And yeah, could see that. I mean, these Polynesian guys, I don't want to stereotype, but these Polynesian guys can play defense. Um, and Togai, too.
Yeah.
He was swarming everywhere last year. So,
Tommy.
yeah,
I
Tommy.
mean, he must have been an undrafted free agent too. I mean, wherever he was, I mean, he was someone that was completely under the radar, right? I mean, no one
Mhm.
even he was an afterthought, but he was
Oh,
like
completely.
productive for us.
Yeah. Yeah. I find it interesting what the meetings were like when they're like, yeah, let's get that Tommy kid. It's like, really? So whose ever idea that was, they hit it out of the park. But I mean, we got excellent depth there at D tackle. We got some nice depth at D end, and obviously Will Anderson and Daniel Hunter. Find me another pass rushing duo that's better than them too. And
Facts.
they both deliver against the run too.
And
We
that's not
got
even to mention the depth with Barnett and Taylor, I believe, is the guy from the Bears we got. I feel like we've all forgotten about him. I mean, like we're
yeah,
4 deep, 5 deep at end as well.
yes, I love it. And you got Autry who can play both as well.
Yep.
And you got Christian Harris, Henry Toto, or no, as AD would always say. Um, and EJ Speed we added from the Colts.
hmm
Um,
But
and
yeah, you talk about the
Aziz,
secondary. Or yeah, you got Aziz, yeah, Aziz.
and then the best secondary in the league. Um,
Yep.
so I mean, that defense is going to deliver. The only stumbling block or question mark is the offensive line. So injuries will not hold us back, as we've seen from this draft. So it's just the line.
Well, there's a couple things like, and kind of like we've been talking about, the way they've approached the interior defensive line last year and now again this year is both years we've kind of clamored for, hey, sign Christian Wilkins or a big defensive
Mm-hmm.
tackle, or okay, now draft one. And they did neither, and they kind of went to the bargain barrel and got these, veterans and maximized their production, like Tim Settle, Foley Fatukasi, Mario Edwards Jr., like all these guys way exceeded their expectations. It seems that they're potentially taking that same approach on interior offensive line with Laken Tomlinson, Ed Ingram. I guess you could say even at tackle too with Cam Robinson and Trent Brown. Who knows? Maybe they flex into guard as well. But it seems, and then again, heading in a draft, okay, well, you got to draft a guard. They didn't do that. So maybe they are taking that same approach. And so if that is the case, are you confident that they can do that? And then I guess another part of that too is, when Caserio was interviewed about these draft picks and, drafting basically best player available, he said now like it's up to the coaching to figure it out. So that kind of falls in line with the offensive line. So with interior offensive line being a big deal, are you confident in the coaching to figure it out?
I'm confident in D'Amico. I'm not super confident in the skill sets of Patterson and Scruggs. I think Ladarius though could surprise a lot of people.
Yep, Ladarius Henderson.
I know AD and Barrett were really high on him, been pushing him for a few months, and then Nick Caserio kind of echoed some of their sentiments. So the potential is there with him. You mentioned the D tackle situation, how he wanted, Matabuke, and I was ready to give my left leg for Chris Jones. So,
yep, Chris Jones, yeah.
Yeah, of course, that was never an option. But, if we can if D'Amico and company can make that work on the offensive line the way he has with interior defensive line, move out of the way, Chiefs, Buffalo. Like, it's a wrap. Can we beat the Eagles is the question. Like, if they can do that. Obviously the investment in Juice Scruggs, which, I mean, it's no secret. I was never high on him that draft cycle. But the potential's there. And just a lot of players, and we see this all over the league, a lot of players take a couple of years and then they hit it in that third year, the breakout season. I mean, aside from like the superstars, that might be the most common year for players to break out. So I'd love to see it. I'd love to be so dead wrong about Patterson and Scruggs, and they just needed some tweaks in the systems, a little bit better coaching to put it all together. I really hope I'm dead wrong about that, and they're just and Ladarius obviously too. So the potential's there. I'm not super confident, but I'm not banging the table. You got to make the trade for somebody right now. Like, D'Amico and Caserio have done enough to at least have some trust in that they can fix that. So,
and I've been pointing this out too, but like it also seems like it's the exact opposite of last year. Whereas, year one with D'Amico and Slowick, we had like a patchwork O line due to a bunch of injuries, and they played well. And at the time, we didn't realize how good it was. But then going into year two last year, we're getting back all of our big, highly drafted, highly paid guys. And we had all this hype about how much better they're going to be. And they were 10x worse. And part of that might have been there was no competition. Like guys were, by lack of depth, were like de facto, like, etched in starters. And fast forward to this year, it's like, we don't know who's going to start where. So it's like, it seems like they kind of maybe took that in. Do you think that's part of what they're thinking too? Is like, and like based off of what they're doing, like signing all these guys, multiple guys that are flexible at the same positions, like they're just taking the approach of like who wants it the most, and that's what they want to do.
I could see that. I mean, the biggest components are continuity and competition, and we should have plenty of both. Just put them all out there, and let's see who can swarm the most, who can succeed the most in this system. And Ed Ingram and Laken Tomlinson, they've had their struggles as of late, but they have some familiarity with the system, and they are like kind of in the more nasty, aggressive swarm mentality. So maybe they're more better positioned to succeed here than they were, Minnesota and San Francisco or Detroit, wherever Laken Tomlinson last was. And I have enough faith that Titus can hold it down at left guard, assuming he still stays at left guard. So it's really just center and right guard, because I really do think Blake Fisher's gonna take a step forward in his second season. Although some guys need that third year, some guys don't, and Blake Fisher might have been through enough in his rookie year to learn from those mistakes. He had some success as well, to where I think he can flourish in this offense. So I think and even if Cam Robinson just reverts to his worst self. I think that Ursary can hold it down. So I really just think it's center and right guard.
Yeah, and I guess you're kind of freezing up, but I assume you can hear me right now. But the biggest thing for me is we have options. I mean, a lot of these guys are versatile; they can play multiple positions. It still looks like Mike is frozen, so I'm just going to keep talking until he potentially comes back. Uh, Looks like he dropped out. Mike, you froze out. Which, uh, Mike, let me get you back up here now. You good?
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm
yeah.
good.
So yeah, but I was going to move on to Swan here anyhow, so it's a good
Yeah.
kind of segue. But I'll just finish up on what you're saying, and then if you'd like to, you can stay in the background, and I'll talk with Swan for 15, 20 minutes, and then if you want to hop back in with some parting words, whatever you want to do is fine with me. But I will say, like, basically what you're pointing out though is like we have options. Like, guys are versatile. Casario after the draft is saying, you know, basically about the tackles. Basically, like, he insinuated what I took away is like basically all of our tackles could play guard, even though they haven't played. And who knows, if we do run a little bit more gap scheme, those bigger bodies might better suit that style as a bigger guard. But when it comes down to it, there's options, and so it's a big puzzle to figure out, and it's hard for me to like really make a guess because it's going to be fluid. I think. I mean, it'll be fun to watch shake out, but yeah, without further ado, I'll bring in Swan. I appreciate you, hopping on and sharing your story. It's been great for
Absolutely.
me to get to know you. But yeah, do you plan on staying in the lobby and hopping back in a little bit,
Sure.
or? Okay, all right. Well, we'll do that. I appreciate you tuning in or hopping on, Mike. Let's get Swan up here. All right, Swan, you there? Swan, pulse check. She might be.
Sorry, I guess it yes.
I can
Can
hear
you hear
you.
me
Yes,
now?
ma'am. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. How are you doing
Oh,
this
doing
evening?
great. We appreciate you joining. For those of you who don't know, this is Swan. She is a member of the H Town Rundown podcast. I actually have met Swan in person a couple of, I think once, maybe twice. I know for sure once at one of our watch parties. And we got to, it was after one of the
Yeah.
Chiefs lost. I can't remember which one, but um,
It was the Tank Dale
yeah,
Chiefs
and I
game,
remember we had a good convo after,
unfortunately.
and you kind of provided some good insight. I think you were telling me like, that the loss hurt, but you thought it was still good for this young team. I can't remember the exact convo, but it was a good convo nonetheless. But yeah, so I mean, obviously with this content creator series, like, my goal is to have like one-on-ones with people for, myself to better get to know you guys as well as the audience. So with that being said, if you don't mind, kind of just give us a background on yourself personally and, specifically, how it pertains to what you do with the Texans.
Sure. So, actually, I became friends and everything with AD, Jules, C. Roll,
RIP.
RIP. And the gang this was doing, unfortunately, a great relationships came out of it, but it actually occurred during the Deshaun Watson situation. We found ourselves around February or so when Spaces was really kicking off. And as Mike had mentioned about them late night hours, basically, I'm not in sports media or anything like this. So I have a regular 9 to 5 job, and I would be in Spaces to 3, 4, 5 in the morning, knowing that I have to get up in 2 hours. And we would do this, and then we would start it all over again in the evening and do this over and over again. So it really came from just a love as a fan and from the female perspective, because it's like, obviously it's a male dominated field and so forth, whether it is, content creation or media per se, credential media per se. But I love football. I have since I was a little girl. I'm born and raised. I'm H Town. So I go all the way back to that team that used to be here that's in another state. Uh, so it's just more of a passion. Um, AD and the guys asked if I would be interested in, joining along, because I'm always, subbing in and so forth. And they respected my ideas and they gave me opportunity to, express myself and share my opinions and so forth. So that's kind of how it started. So unlike my co-host partner, Mike G is what I call
Mike
him, Mike
G.
G, because we have more than one Mike in the group. So that was how I always distinguish. I always call him Mike G. Um, I love the draft. I find it addictive a little bit. You probably wouldn't know because I post probably about 3 to 4 mock drafts a day from the moment the season ends. It's like, okay, and we lost, in KCF, like, okay, time for mock draft time. So I do that on a daily basis, want to see how to put the team together and so forth. That is kind of it's a passion, and I want other women to see that there are others out there like them that have a passion. You kind of hang with the boys. So
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And you say hang with the boys. I mean, you know what you're talking about. It's not hanging with the boys, like like when I talk with you, or if it's spaces, or we talk in person, or whether it's tweeting back and forth. You know what you're talking about. So, kudos to you, and keep that up. And I would say that you, not to think that I didn't think that females know what they're talking about, but I would say you definitely opened my eyes to realize, like, okay, like, yeah, they do. And like you mentioned too, like,
yeah, we eat, sleep, drink, all the other stuff, just like y'all guys do about our team. We're just as passionate. We can be as polite and, or we can be as rowdy. I have sort of a pouty mouth, for those that don't know me, I do. I'm unapologetic about it. I love my team. I express my team, my passion. So yeah, I can get with the best of them.
yeah, I mean, and you do. So I mean, I've learned a lot, and I think it's good too, because yeah, like, honestly, like, I've learned a lot being married to my wife for about almost going on 5 years now. You learn a lot of things from a female perspective, whether it's sports or whatever. But in this situation, sports, like, y'all may catch things that we don't catch on to, just overall big picture. So I think it's good, male, female, whatever, to have as many voices as possible. And just going back to your story, it's awesome that basically, you said you're an average Joe, 9 to 5, and you love the Texans so much that you would be on Twitter Spaces talking till 3, 4 in the morning, and sacrificing your day the next day for what? You're not getting paid, just because you love the team, and that's kind of what I love about this fan base, and that's what I am and what I'm doing essentially. And I've gotten to meet many of y'all that are all like minded, so I'm sure other franchises or fan bases have that same, but I'll say that the Texans one is, the community is incredible, and it's been great to get to know you guys. But as you alluded to, you kind of talked about the draft. Just to start off, just give me your overall takes on the draft, how you feel about it.
I walked away from the draft happy, not elated. Like Mike G, I was a little disappointed. I would give them a minus, and they get that minus because I wanted my guard, and I wanted the center. Most of my drafts had them doing 2 and 3 linemen, because I had a tackle, a center, and a guard. That was just me. I wanted to walk out with. However, I had hoped they would double dip on wide receiver. I was surprised that he took 2 from the same school, because I had either or at different times in my draft, but I never had both of them obviously being drafted. Jared Wilson was one of my favorites. And then for guard, I can just tell you right now, I was highly upset Monday night. So we can go back to, Thursday night, when I was very upset because I am a Longhorns fan. Hook 'em. So I knew we were probably out of the range for Banks, so it was not one of those that was, I wanted them, but I didn't think it was going to happen. Golden was shooting up the
Oh my
charts
gosh.
because of what he did at the combine. So I had prepared myself. Possibly I wouldn't get him, but a Mecca would be there. I was hoping he would fall. But ultimately, if I got to go O-line, night one, it's got to be
Yeah.
Donovan. That was my guy.
Oh man.
And then it was Josh Simmons, and then I had Connerly. So I had this whole list of guys. So I went through the whole experience that night. And when Golden didn't come off and they took him back, I was like, okay. I saw the mocks, and David Jeremiah had Golden going to the Packers, but I was hoping he was wrong. And the way the draft was falling, was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get Golden. And when they took him, and he had it, and he had his walkout song and everything, I knew he was gonna walk out to it and it's gonna be perfect. So when it didn't happen, I was brokenhearted. It was VY all over again for me. So once again, but I just knew, because the Vikings, and I have Viking friends, because I knew they only had 4 picks, they was probably going to trade out of it. Nowhere in my mind, because they didn't have a bad old line, they just had injuries. No way they was taking my tackle. So I was like, I'm going to walk out with Donovan Jackson. I'm good. Fine. That's what you said. You wanted Swan. You wanted the old lineman. We're going to get him. And when they took him, it was like, I got sucker punched, man. But thank goodness that my GM doesn't operate off of emotions like I do, because that's why I'm a fan. That's why they call us fanatics, because he knew it could happen, and you can't fall in love with a player and move on. So at this point, I'm going like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And then when he traded out, I was like, okay, that's smart. We'll wind up doubling up on O-lineman. So that first night was hard for me. I mean, I drank. I was drinking, but I drank even more because I like that hurt. And then the next day, first pick, Jaden Higgins. I'm like, yes, okay, here we go. Then next note is like, okay, we went to Tay Ursery. Okay, because he was one of mine on my list. He was, I think he's like 4 on my list as far as linemen at the time. So I was like, okay. Then you come back and you do it again. I'm like, whoa, what are we? Okay. Did somebody hack the system? So I was thinking like, okay, what are we doing? And then it was like, okay, I'm so excited. Like, I see how this is going. And then it's like, subsequently, and I'm like, okay, where's my running back? Because I was like, I want my running back. I want my tight end. I need my DT. I'm going through this list. And I like how the draft went. I'll take it back. That was another player. And I understood the rationale later on. I just didn't like where he was picked, and that was Graham Mertz. I understand it in the sense that this is Mills' last, hoorah. This is 4th season. He probably's not coming back. You like to get somebody in the system, blah, blah, blah. But I'm going like, oh, we couldn't take a DT. We couldn't take a guard instead. Could we not have gotten him and, undrafted free agent, So overall, I see the vision. I don't have complaints. I thought it was still a very good draft. It's just more or less now, let's see his own D'Amico, his own Kaylee, his own Popovich, and all them to get that offense, clicking, get my quarterback, take care of him. I don't want to see him sacked 62, 63 times in a season.
Yep.
So
no, I agree. That's the biggest thing that we all take away regardless. And even if they didn't draft interior O-line, we're hoping we would think that they wouldn't just ignore that just because they are, fixated on doing best player available. You would think that they went into the draft saying, hey, we don't need to draft an interior offensive lineman. So, I think there is hope and comfort that it does work out.
Now, see, I'm on the other side of the street. I believe they did draft for need, but it was BPA. I don't think they went in saying, I'm just doing best player available, because you don't double dip for wide receiver and you draft O-lineman in your first 3 picks, and you telling me we all know going in, everybody in the NFL knew O-line and wide receiver were your needs. We were just very fortunate that this draft was very deep in talent, starters, contributors versus star type level players. Now, I think our guys can become stars, but let's just be honest, they weren't in that top 10, top tier blue chip guys initially, but I think they can be. Let's look at Nico. He was a 3rd rounder. Look at him now. So I still think they did do need. I just don't think they reached And I think that's the difference. So I'm fine. I don't think you just go out there and just draft just based on BPA when you do have needs and guys are there. So I do like the draft and how they worked it. I like the undrafted free agents, a couple of them they picked up. So I was happy with that. I still think they need to sign a couple guys. I like to put in the atmosphere. They need to go get Brandon Sheriff. I'd be very happy with that as a guard.
Yep.
And then bring back Foley Fadakowski. And then, you
Mhm.
know what? Let's roll.
Yeah, and as Nick Casario said, like he's alluded to this like several times in the past month, like he has emphasized that the draft is not the only avenue that you have to build a roster. And he talks about how you can add guys in free agency or trade
Mhm.
from now until training camp. So I'm glad you pointed that out. But just to kind of recap on what you were saying, I hadn't really thought about reliving that moment of Matthew Golden getting sniped, 2 picks before us. And basically, if the Packers wouldn't have picked him, the Vikings wouldn't have picked him either because they didn't need a receiver, in my opinion, at that position.
Correct.
And so, but then, quickly I was like, okay, I was just like you. Okay, I want Donovan Jackson. And then he got sniped, and my heart sunk as well. But I would think, too, that I think those were both guys that they wanted. I think if either would have fell, I think they would have gotten him. But to your point, too, like, thank goodness Nick Casario is the GM. He's not as emotional as us. And, he was already planning for this situation prior. He was fielding calls and had, trades lined up already and, got maximum value and, played the board. But I do agree too, like with your take as far as it was BPA or it was still needs based, so like I was, like I told Mike before, and I'm sure y'all were, aware of my stance, but like I was like in win now mode, ultra aggressive, fix these first 2-3 needs and then whatever else is whatever. But I do think that I think they do BPA within their needs. Like I
Right.
think it was both.
Exactly.
Yeah, and like you said, like, you have the board, you see how it falls, and you don't reach for a certain position. And, like if you have, a BPA within needs at this position at 25 when the board fell the way it did, it made sense to, hey, trade back and still get those positions. So, yeah, you look back, receiver, I mean, we both were considered needs. Depth has been an issue. Obviously, the tackle was a need. So, but yeah, I mean, I love that your take is like that. It's kind of funny that you say A minus, like you're kind of critical. That's a pretty good grade. So you must be blessed and you must be happy.
Like I said, as a not drafting a guard and then taking Graham Mertz where you took him at, not necessarily you could take 255, I wouldn't have cared, but just that. But like I said, I understood it, what he was thinking, and I'm not going to question that that pick. Now, the other thing that I did like what he did with the draft was, and I don't know if you've taken a look, all the drafts that he did, because he did several. But in addition to that, we have 2 2s next year. We have 2 4s, a third, I think a couple of 6 and a 7. So all that maneuvering and everything, and we gave up one of the thirds to trade up, so we could have had 2 3s, but that's fine. He still gave us opportunities, so we have capital if we want to trade for somebody, because you never know what may happen throughout the season. Somebody who thought they were contending may not be contending and may be willing to trade, and we may have to trade one of those picks. Or, next year we can double dip, or he can move around like he normally does. So I feel good what he did this year and going into next year. So I don't think they'll stop with the O-line. Sorry about that. So I feel confident.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like, we all fixate on this year, but like, a lot of these trades he made, like he set himself up for next year. And that was a takeaway I kind of like had clarity on, like after the fact, like, I was so again fixated on this like win now, which kind of sounds dumb. Like he did like a good mix of improving good now, but not sacrificing the future. Like the way he drafted, now we have 2 starting receivers for the next 5 years. And then also, like you said, added draft capital. So I feel like he did a good job of kind of balancing, being aggressive now, but also setting yourself up for the future. And now, these future draft picks will be important as we have these big contracts start to be taken on. We now need to have cheaper guys, through the draft.
Exactly.
So I'm glad you pointed that out, and and then we'll just continue to critique those, and then and I'll say too, like the Graham Mertz pick, that's fair. I guess it's a good thing when the biggest gripe is a 6th-round pick,
Right.
So I mean, who knows? Maybe it'll be a terrible trade or a great trade, but time will tell. But I guess just going into OTAs and then training camp, post draft, now the roster's kind of solidify itself. What are some of the biggest battles you'll be looking forward to?
I am looking for the O-line. That is the only position, which is other than quarterback, is the most important position right now, because I want my quarterback to wheel and deal like he did when he did his rookie year, when he was protected better. It wasn't a great O-line, but it was a makeshift O-line. They did enough to allow him to be able to, excel and get the ball to our weapons. So I'm looking for that, because if they can be solid, I'm not looking for great. Be nice if they hit like that, but I'm being realistic here. If they can just be solid, if they learn how to pick up stunts and twists, because everybody know that was what the problem was last year. So I would expect that defenses coordinators will do the same thing. I would, until you can show me that you can protect your guy and beat it. And now you're coming in with guys who have not all played together consistently. So I'm going to try you and see what happens. So the O-line, the left tackle position, I do think it will beat Cam, but I wouldn't be surprised if Tay can beat him out. Maybe that's my wishful thinking, because that's my tackle of the future. I would love for him to come out and just take the position. I would love to be having an argument with folks and debating them, saying that Nick Caserio wasted $12 million, but we got our tackle for the next, 10 to 15 years to be with my quarterback. I would love to see LD LaDainian Henderson. I would love to see him. I don't mind him beating out. I don't mind our young guys beating out the veterans, because my mindset is you all are not going to be here beyond this year. Y'all are here for this year, and I hope y'all help to take us over. But ultimately, I would like to be able to know I truly have my guys in waiting. And it's just more so truly my vets are just really better than you, versus, well, they're really not that much better, but I'm scared to put the young guys out there. That would make me more nervous. So I would like to know, leaving mini camp, hearing folks not just blow smoke, but be honest to say, you know what, I saw some things with these young guys. I'm seeing things with the group that's been out there. I just want to hear something that's positive going into, training camp, like when we was out there last year, because I'm looking forward to it, because I do it every year. So I don't want to play around with positions. Let me try you at this. Don't let me try you at that. I really did love the part of the interview with D'Amico when he said he sees Tay as a tackle at this point right now. Then guard. Now, could that change possibly? Yeah, he heads on him, but for the most part, they're seeing him as a tackle. I don't want to mess up our guys that way, where we're moving the young guys all over the place. So I really want to see either Juice or Patterson at center and guard. I need them to figure that part out. I don't want them moved anywhere else. Figure that out. One of them got to be good. I need one to be good. I don't care which one it is. And
not even, just decent, really.
As far as Blake Fisher, I would like to keep him at, Blake Fisher at right tackle. That's where we started him out at, and that's where he was growing last year. I don't want to do to him what we did to Titus Howard. We initially start you left tackle in the middle of after draft. I think it was mini camp, but we moved you over to right tackle, and then due to injuries, we moved you to left guard, and you have never had a true full season as a right tackle. And I think that just messed up things. I don't want to do that to these guys. And that's what I'm hoping for Popovich and with Kaylee is you all know what these guys are. It's one thing to say, hey, in a pinch, we can move them there, but I think he's a right tackle or he's a tackle. I think he's a guard or he's a center. Know what you want with these guys. So that's what I'm looking more so forward to. I'm not concerned about wide receivers, although it is one of the difficult positions to, come into as a rookie. I think they're ahead of the curve as far as their skill set because they're both of them are very good route runners.
Mm-hmm.
So for that and Jalen, well, you got to use that on the Jalen.
A lot of Jalen's for sure.
Noel, I'll say
yeah.
Noel. Okay. It's going to be interesting. Christian Kirk, unless he gets injured, which he's only played 8 games the last 2 seasons each. I would like to see Mechie and Noel really go at it. So I want to see them figure out who's going to be that second slot receiver. And I know there are times that Noel will be interchanged, but for the most part, he really is the slot at the moment. Defense, I want to see them on the field in the sense of the crash outs because other than Stingley, there is nobody. He's the only sane one. That's
and he's just elite, like silent room. Technician.
All the rest of them, yeah, the rest of them, I'm looking forward to it because they are not going to take it easy in training camp. They are going to pop some folks. So I expect some, mini, skirmishes. So, but the defense, I'm not worried about. I mean, D'Amico gonna handle it. That is just more so. I'm just excited to see what Kaylee is going to do with my quarterback.
Yeah, I agree. And I've been holding out for hope, and maybe I'm dumb for this, but I guess it's kind of what they have signaled to us fans or to the public is they've basically said, hey, the struggles last year on O-line were almost all Slowick and Chris Strouser, based off their actions. If they thought it was personnel, we would have saw some more sweeping changes. And so, in my opinion, I think they have a lot of confidence in Nick Caley being able to remedy a lot of the issues simply off scheme, which I tend to believe because, like you mentioned earlier, stunts and delayed blitzes, simple things that were killing us. I think a lot of that can be fixed by scheme. So I guess that'll be fun to watch too. I don't know how we can quite watch for that in training camp to see how that helps, but I guess that starts with CJ getting the keys to the offense, getting more control at the line of scrimmage, hot routes, audibles, setting protections himself. So I think that's a part of it too, right?
Just can you get since he's going to do it, the biggest thing is was getting the play in, getting in and out of the huddle on time, because getting out of the huddle and you got 10 seconds left on the play clock doesn't leave very much, time for you to assess pre-snap, get in the motion when you did it, and then call a protection, because then you was depending on either Scruggs or Jules, whoever was playing center, to do that. Now you, based on what we're hearing from CJ, is he's going to be in control. So I'm expecting Ohio State CJ. I'm expecting, Georgia, Peach Bowl CJ to come alive.
5K, 5,000 yards, baby.
Hey. So I'm expecting that CJ to come back. So if he is in control, and this will be going in his 3rd season, so you've had 2 seasons of seeing defenses, and 3 of the teams you played last year, you're going to play again. You're going to play Buffalo again. You're going to play the Chiefs. You're going to play Baltimore. You're going to have to beat 2 of those 3 teams. That's just me, projecting, to get to the Super Bowl. So you've seen those defenses for 2 years, so you should know what they do to a certain extent. So I expect more from CJ this year as well.
I think you might have cut out or froze there for a second. I'll talk just so there's no dead air, but if and when you get back, just keep talking, Swan. This is kind of funny. This happened last time to Mike G as it was phasing out, which, I was going to bring him back in. So, Mike, I'll bring you back in. I see your camera's off, but I'll bring you back into the fold. Just feel free to chat. Okay, Swan, sorry. You were talking and you cut out. Swan, you there? Oh, this is crazy. Y'all keep getting bugged out on me. Let's see. Swan, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, you cut out. You want to finish what you were saying?
Oh no, I was just saying is that CJ will see at least two of the three teams. He's going to see all three teams we played last year: Bills, Ravens, and Chiefs. So you know what they do to you, so you have some familiarity with their defense, and also you're going to probably see at least two of those three teams in the playoffs, and that's the only way we're going to get to the Super Bowl because you're going to wind up having to beat at least two of those teams. I expect so. I expect a leap for CJ this year, but I think if I get Ohio State CJ, oh, sky's the limit. And I think it's either you or Mike G that said, I think it was Mike G. He's not concerned about if we can beat the Chiefs or Bills or Ravens, but if we play the Eagles. And I'm going like, you know what? Wasn't that guy that's on the other side, his name Jalen Carter, wasn't he on that team? When CJ was, doing his thing on that Georgia team.
Yeah, good point.
So I don't think that moment would, if he gets there, I feel like we win.
But that's a good point that like a good offense can negate a defense like
healthy.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
Keep in mind, most of that Georgia defense is on the Eagles.
That's what I'm saying. That's a great point you just made, and he beat that by having a good offensive scheme by allowing him to do so. So I mean, yeah, like I've been kind of getting this notion in my head, like that it is kind of going to be what you're talking about, Swan. I mean, you listen to Nick Caley; he talks about being adaptable, adjustable, making the offense around his personnel, around his quarterback, as opposed to what Slowick did. He had this offense and y'all fit into my scheme. And so if that is the case, if you build it around CJ's strengths, what got him drafted so high was the offense at Ohio State. So why wouldn't you do that? And we saw what he can do. And then like I started getting these thoughts about what it'll be like when we had this draft and we drafted, obviously Noel and Higgins. Like we could go 10 personnel 4 wide. We could go Nico, and we could go Higgins on the outside, and we could have slot
5 wide.
I can see that too.
I need a game when we go 5 wide. I'm sorry, I do. I need one.
And none of us mentioned during the show Woody Marks, the best third down back by many draft analysts in the draft. So now we have basically another slot receiver at running back who could come in there. I'm excited. I mean, like I know last year like kind of hurt us because I think we learn as a fan base as well as the team, like all the hype. Like I was on here on all these shows saying we're going to do this and that, and then it came crashing down. Like we're talking about the 3-headed monster, 3,000 receivers, 5,000 pass yards.
Injuries did it to us. It wasn't like they.
And Slowick.
Yeah, but I'm saying I think had Diggs hadn't gotten hurt, and I know I'm saying a bunch of ifs. If Nico doesn't get hurt in that with the hammy in the Buffalo game,
for sure,
the offense would have been different. I think they could have overcome Slowick, but you can't have injuries and overcome bad scheme and play calling because talent can help you get over some of that. But what I need this year is, can I score more than 3 points in the second half?
Can you capitalize off a dominant defense giving you the ball
in the second half?
Yes.
Because the defense did their job. They turned quarterbacks over who were supposed to be excellent at protecting the ball, and we made them turn it over 4 times in a game, 5 times in a game. I mean, fumble, whatever the case may be. So the defense is going to give us the ball back at times. So we know that. You're just going to have to make sure we're actually getting the end zone, getting 7 and not selling for 3 and scoring more than 3 points in the second half or not being shut out in a second half, because that is basically what happened to us. So even through injury and play calling, we still were there. Get over that top, but knocking on wood, I envision at minimum AFC Championship game. And I have us
which is a big difference. We see what the going on the road does to this young team. Our kicker too, Kaimi. That was a
Oh,
big factor.
I need him to start not missing any extra points. I need you to hit an extra point. Okay.
Yeah, and which he can
He
do
does it
really
at the wrong
well
time.
in
It
RG.
happens at the
So
wrong time. It's like when you
yeah,
could tie up a game. There are times when I think he just loses concentration a little bit sometimes, or maybe it could be the hold at times. But I just need him and Tommy Townsend on the same page this year.
but what's crazy to me is like kind of what you're saying, Swan, and like I think we all kind of agree. And Mike, maybe you can follow up after I say this, but to me, all last year I was preaching like this is a Super Bowl caliber defense, and honestly, all we needed was an average to slightly above average offense to be a legit contender, in my opinion. Like we just talked about those games, like the Lions where we had 5 turnovers, the Packers 3 turnovers, like all these games where the defense was just like handing you the game, like just convert on one of these and you win. And we didn't, and we still lost. Also, games where they dominated and we barely won, but we could have put the game away. So now, if offense can just marginally improve, or if they, if we see the CJ Ohio State offense, I could see us being how like the Lions were last year, where like you just blow teams out early and often, like, and it's almost like a snowball effect, in my opinion, too. Like with the defense that we have, the way it's built, if you can get, and we talked about this last year, it never happened, but like again, it's the same thing. If you can get out to an early 10, 2 to 3 score lead, it now can have this domino effect and snowball if you get the other team getting in known passing downs, and now our D line can pin their ears back and rush the passer. It can get ugly. So, Mike, do you have confidence that the offense can take that step? And do you kind of agree with like they just need to marginally improve, and like this team can vastly improve because of that?
Yeah, I definitely think they can significantly improve, and that is what's needed in order to take that next step and to get on the game's biggest stage playing in February. Because we got the receivers, we got the quarterback. I think we don't know for sure, but I think we got the OC and the O-line coach to take the next step. It's just the O-line staying healthy, and I don't know who needs to come in and teach Dalton Schultz how to block. But hey, if somebody can do that, that'd be sweet.
I just need him to catch. No,
spread him out wide, make him a receiver.
No, I don't need. No, hold on. I'm not asking blocking. Okay, can you chip? Okay, see you're asking too much. I need baby steps. Okay.
Yeah, because we had him block Karlaftis and Jonathan Grenard and Big Shock
and Chris Jones.
Yeah,
right, but I'm saying it's just chip. Think about it. That last sack that he took, when he just let him went right by him, didn't chip it. Had he even chipped that ball, CJ does not need 3+ seconds to throw the ball.
But how much of that is on Slowick for even putting him in that position? Is like, so that's kind of my hope too. Is like, okay, Kaylee,
you're paying him.
But like it seemed like Slowick had like zero awareness of like the game and personnel and matchups and alignments. Like you have to know who's on the field where. Okay, now don't call this call where Schultz is one-on-one with the premier, rusher in the biggest drive of your season, like stuff like that. Like I'm hoping that's better.
See that part I'm not concerned with. I think it's just more or less the offense getting in a rhythm and chemistry. I don't think it will be play calling. And I'm just going to go by pedigree. I mean, keep in mind, he's a tight end coach. So you understand blocking. I mean, that's most important to you. So you understand that. You understand the quarterback that you have. And it's not about, it's got to be my scheme. Had he just come from New England, then I could hear folks that complain about it. But you sat under 2 different head coaches, but
Super Bowl
2
winning head coaches
that are meticulous in details. And it's something you do it over and over again to become second nature. So I think it will help Schultz in a sense where I think I won't say took plays off. I think he was just more or less lazy. I think a lot of them just didn't care because they were frustrated. So they didn't put in the effort versus I know this is a mess that we got here, but hey, I still got to get out there and do my job, the best that I can, even if this guy don't know what he's doing. So I think the 2023 Schultz, but improved, will come back. But what I'm looking forward to actually is that I really hope Irv Smith Jr. makes the team, because him and Brevin Jordan ought to technically right now, along with Stover, but he's still growing, are better blockers than Schultz. So I have no problem if Brevin Jordan takes snaps, or if Irv Smith Jr. takes snaps away from Schultz, because they give you receiving and blocking. So
Yep.
I want to be able to see 2 tight end sets, and just how I'm thinking. I don't care if it's Stover. I don't care if it is Irv Smith. I don't care if it's Brevin.
Lakey.
I want to see 2 of those 3 out there when you're going max protect if you have to. I don't want to see Dalton Schultz out there whatsoever. Because there are going to be times that it's going to have to happen, okay? Because just because of who CJ is, teams aren't scared of him. Now, if we get CJ from the Chargers game, like I said, Georgia CJ could be a little bit different. He got that and run, but I don't want to see him do it too much. But for the most part, they're going to send more blitzes at him. So I just need to make sure y'all got that protected up. So guess what? If you got the extra tight end out there, that's fine. But at least I know it's a tight end that can catch and block.
I think a lot of it was like mental errors, and like I think they would do these slide protections, and like there was just miscommunication. Like guys, like when you have untouched rushers, it's not because you got overpowered, you got beat mentally. And so like to me it sucked, but that's like a good thing when you think about fixing it. Like there's hope that it can be fixed. But I mean, this has been a great episode. I appreciate you guys coming on.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely.
Of course. Is there anything that y'all want to shout out before you go? Obviously, Swan, we didn't get to mention your handle on Twitter, but Mike, if you just want to start, anything you want to say, if there's any points you want to make, or just shout out the pod and all that good stuff, and then Swan, you can follow up.
Yeah, I think you had a great point about the play calling. It was almost as if Slowick was like, "Hey, I got this bubble screen. How about now, dude? It's the 4th time you've called that. It's the 2nd quarter. Stop calling these bubble screens on 2nd down. Even the fans know you're going to do it." But no, just want to remind everybody to like, share, and subscribe to Stressens and to the H-Down Rundown. And yeah, that's all I got.
Well, I just want to say thank you again for having me. Enjoyed. And my handle is Black Texans Girl. I'm on lock now, so if you follow, you'll be able to get me now. But yeah, Swarm. That's all I have.
But yeah, I appreciate it. And as always, for me, you can follow me on wherever. But as always, as well, on the website, HoustonStressens.com. Feel free to subscribe to the free newsletter. But that's all we got. I mean, I'm thinking now, like, just like from talking to you guys, like, we need to have some kind of mixer coming up soon so we can kind of get together. I know it's hard to do when it's not like a draft or a game, but maybe we can like think of some kind of way to kind of get like a Texans Twitter gathering going sometime soon. Kind of get together and chop it up.
You can do it at the brewery. I'll be there.
All right. Well, I'll sign off here and we can say our goodbyes in the chat after. But thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Be blessing.